G'day everyone, my name's Dave, and you've probably heard people say that seeing is believing. But did you know that the Bible actually says the opposite? Seriously. Throughout the Bible we see that listening is way more important than seeing. And that's why in this video we're going to show you how a single Hebrew word can not only explain why listening is so important to your faith, but how you can hear and obey God's voice today. Welcome to Israelu, where we understand that the Bible can be confusing, but you want to get more from it, which is why we want to teach you some simple Hebrew words that will change the way you read the Bible. One of those words is Shema, which we translate in the Bible as hear. Now, not hear as in hear, H-E-R-E, but hear as in hear, to listen. Now, hearing is important to our faith because, as one of Jesus' followers named Paul once wrote, our faith comes from hearing. Perhaps this is why the Bible goes to such great lengths to describe God's voice, so that we know what we're listening for. For example, in Genesis we read that God's voice holds the power of creation. In 1 Kings, his voice is described as a whisper, while the Psalms explains that God's voice can strip the trees bare. The voice of the Lord twists the mighty oaks and strips the forest bare. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks once wrote that listening for God's voice is important because the voice that brought the universe into being created us in love and guides us through our lives. But with so many variations in God's voice, how are we even supposed to hear Him, to receive that guidance? Well, this is where the Hebrew word Shema comes in, because it doesn't just mean to hear, it also means to obey and to take action. Let me explain. See, I have 3 daughters, and from time to time I will ask them to clean their rooms. Now, if I come home and find that their rooms are still a mess, I will usually ask them if they heard what I had said. In fact, that reminds me, I should probably go and check on their rooms right now, so just give me a second.
Oh yeah, it's a mess.
Yep, I was right. They didn't hear or obey. I'm asking if they listened because they didn't obey. They may have heard what I said, but they didn't do what I said. Now, this word Shema comes from Deuteronomy 6, which starts with the words, "Hear, O Israel." And the idea of this passage is that the people of Israel should not just hear God's words, but they should obey God's words as well. And this passage from Deuteronomy is also one of the most well-known prayers in Judaism. For generations, every Jewish boy and girl has learned the Shema prayer when they were very young. And this means when Jesus was growing up, he was probably taught to pray the Shema prayer twice a day as well. The prayer goes like this: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give to you today are to be written upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates." Now, embedded within this prayer is the meaning of Shema, that we would hear God and that we would obey God. See, God's voice is powerful, but unless you're taking action to obey Him, then you might as well not have heard God's voice in the first place. See, if you want to hear God's voice today, then you have to embrace the full meaning of Shema, to hear and obey. So what are you doing today to make sure you're able to hear from God? Perhaps it starts with doing that thing that He's already told you should do. Because if we want people to believe that God is everything we say He is, then we need to be everything He says we are. Well, I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. And for more content like this, make sure you check out israelu.org.